They're sitting around the dinner table wondering how they're going to pay their bills while GM announces $4 billion of new investment south of the border.
Very explosive day in the House of Commons. Pierre Poilievre completely wrecks Mark Carney, and Mark Carney blows his gaskets. Welcome back to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. It's obvious to any intelligent voter in Canada that Mark Carney cannot handle Donald Trump, that Donald Trump unequivocally beats him every time they come together, and Donald Trump seems to do it effortlessly. The Liberal Party is obviously aware of that. Today in the House of Commons, they were acting with all kinds of violations of etiquette, yelling over Pierre Poilievre, trying to distract him. It was pretty explosive. Pierre Poilievre handled it masterfully. Mark Carney, on the other hand, my, did he lose his temper. Before we get into it, I want to encourage all of you to ensure that you're still subscribed, and any of you that are not subscribed, to subscribe. Okay, let's check it out.
The opposition.
Well, we now know why the U.S. president wanted this prime minister in power so badly. A weak leader whose high taxes and anti-development laws are sending billions of dollars and thousands of jobs out of this country. 86,000 jobs lost. And yesterday, the Prime Minister promised the President that he would increase Canadian investment in the U.S. by $1 trillion if he gets the agreement that he expects to get. Mr. Speaker, in exchange for $1 trillion of job losses in Canada, will he at least get an end to the U.S. auto tariffs that are killing jobs for our workers in Ontario?
I just want to say that the Liberal Party yelled at Pierre Poilievre almost the entire time. He didn't miss a beat. He didn't catch his breath. He just went forward, ignored them completely. That takes skill, guys. That is not something that just anybody can do.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker.
See what I mean? One conservative said something, and he had to say his sentence 3 times.
We have the best deal in the world with the Americans. First point. Second point, the President of the United States and myself had a meeting of minds yesterday with respect to the future of the steel sector, the aluminum sector, the energy sector in cooperation, which is why our teams are negotiating the terms of those deals. And we are working, as the President himself said in the Oval Office, on the modalities of an auto agreement.
A meeting of minds, everybody. He took 4 MPs down, plus himself, plus all the security detail, so that he could have a meeting of minds. I mean, it's a modern day technology. The Liberal Party must be aware that they could have done that over Zoom. I mean, the last time Mark Carney met with the Coalition of the Willing, he did it over Zoom. So what exactly did he need to spend all of our Canadian tax dollars and leave the country for 3 days hanging out in the east coast of the United States instead of worrying about the problems that are happening in Canada? Or does he want me to believe that he can handle the problems of Canada remotely and he can't talk to the President of the United States remotely? A meeting of the minds. Come on. But do you see how easy it is to trip him up? I mean, if the whole entire bench started yelling at him, he'd probably have to stop talking.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he just confirmed he's selling out our auto workers. And let me tell him what it means when investment leaves this country, because he was forced a record amount out in his 7 months in power. The 700 workers at the GM plant who lost their jobs in Oshawa, they can tell him about investment that is left. They're sitting around the dinner table wondering how they're going to pay their bills while GM announces $4 billion of new investment south of the border. So while the Prime Minister promises yet another $1 trillion gift to President Trump, why doesn't he look them at those workers in the eye and explain to them why he betrayed them?
Look him in the eye. He can't even stay in the country. He's probably going to go to Europe tomorrow.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, What this government is doing for the auto sector is an unprecedented investment in the Canadian auto sector. We look the Canadian auto workers in the eye. We have $5 billion in the Strategic Response Fund. We have $10 billion for liquidity management. We have worker retraining. We are striking deals with countries around the world. We have the best deal already with the Americans, and it will be even better.
I'm confused if you're going to be throwing all of these tax dollars at the problem. If you have all this tax dollars, how come those 700 people are out of work? And if we have the best deal, why are you even talking about, why did you campaign on negotiating it? Why did you say that even though you have the best, you're saying right now you have the best deal, but on the campaign trail, you were like, we're at a war, it's a trade war, unjustified terror. I mean, all the rhetoric that was coming out of your mouth doesn't match the words that you just said right now. So I'm just wondering if you could please provide for me a little consistency, Mr. Carney, because you're always talking about how Donald Trump needs to provide consistency. I think that you should practice what you preach. Consistency matters. We can agree that you say that to Donald Trump, and I think the Canadian people need to say it to you, because you're talking about all these tax dollars, all this debt spending you're going to be doing, borrowing money to give GM billions of dollars in liquidity protection, and yet they're still putting people out of work. They're still closing down buildings, and they're still moving their entire operation south of the border. Make it make sense, Mr. Carney, because from where I'm sitting, it doesn't.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we'll go soft on him today because I know he's still recovering from surgery to have his elbows removed. Remember that promise, Mr. Speaker? Dancing around with his elbows in the air. We haven't seen those elbows since the election, after which $54 billion of investment gone to the United States. 86,000 jobs gone. American tariffs on Canada doubled. And as to the best deal in the world, why is it then, if we have the best deal, that Canada has the fastest shrinking economy in the G7 and 86,000 people are without a job?
I just want to say that was a great crack about the elbows, because you'll remember him at the victory dance into that ridiculous song. It's 86,000 direct jobs. There are businesses right now because, like, for example, the 700 jobs in Oshawa, there are probably lunch trucks and other kinds of businesses that are now closed because that was their bread and butter. And now they're not going to be counting that in the 86,000 jobs, but they are definitely going to be impacted.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Okay. All right. Mr. Speaker.
Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, there are three things that are true. First is, I realized long before the Leader of the Opposition, long before the last election, you remember the last election? Long before the last election, that our relationship with the United States would never again be what it was. Secondly, thing that is true is we have the best deal with the Americans. And the third thing that's true is we will get an even better deal because we...
So really, you just repeated yourself. I mean, I just heard you say that a minute ago. Can you answer the question? I mean, I just think that repeating yourself the first time wasn't a suitable answer. But look at the trained seals around him. Everybody's stomping their feet. Philip Champagne looks like he took a page out of the movie from The Joker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canadians do remember the last election where that Prime Minister promised to put elbows up. It was not a promise, it was the promise that he ran on. Now those elbows have come down. The American tariffs have doubled. We have by far the weakest economy in the G7. 86,000 people have lost their jobs. And the Prime Minister went pathetically to the White House to offer a $1 trillion gift, bowing before the President in weakness. $1 trillion, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of the last election, where in his platform did he promise to give $1 trillion of our investment dollars to the Americans?
Wow. Oh, that was excellent.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform the Leader of the Opposition that there is a thing called the private sector. The private sector makes decisions about investment. The private sector the private sector does the best deal in the world. We'll invest in this country and we will build Canada strong.
If I had no other example between Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney to choose from, I would say one thing from this exchange, that Pierre Poilievre is clearly the better leader. He's clearly better under pressure. He's clearly more focused, and he's clearly got a stronger grasp of the problem. Further, I would say that the Liberal government has no idea what they're doing. That's why Mark Carney had nothing but the same three sentences over and over again. Canada strong. First, I just want to address the crack about the private sector, because that's a tactic we saw the Liberals use last year. This is the same old playbook. They've been doing nothing, guys. Imagine that. If you're out there on the far left, appreciate that they have done nothing different in years. They can't even update their jabs at Pierre Poilievre. That's how bad their creative process is. And when you have problems, what you need is creative process. However, let's just talk about the crack itself, the private sector crack. The far left the first thing that any far left will try to tell you is how much experience they have and how they're qualified to be the expert in the room. And yet, when they realize that Pierre Poilievre is a 20-year politician or whatever he is, many years, he's a career politician, they tell themselves that he's not the expert in the room. They honestly want to believe in their mind that this guy who started his entire, who's looked since high school, decided on this one goal to be the Prime Minister of Canada. Probably, I'm speaking for him. I don't know exactly what his motivation was, but I can appreciate that it's probably somewhere in there. Now he's risen to the leader of the party. He's got his party gained 20 seats in the last election, and yet the left wants to make it seem like because he's never worked in the private sector, he doesn't understand what it means to run the country. Meanwhile, all of the Liberal bench, who have all failed out of the private sector, who have flopped out of the private sector, are trying to make it seem like they are better equipped. If they are so good, better equipped, how come Mark Carney, who talked about how his experience in the private sector was going to make him wrap Donald Trump right around his finger? Yet Donald Trump puts him on his knee. I mean, there's no denying the fact that Donald Trump doesn't respect Mark Carney in any way, shape, or form. And I'm sure that that's just Donald Trump getting even for all of the times that the Liberal Party, Mark Carney included, talked out and said bad things. But that is not what we're speaking to here. We're speaking to the left, trying to paint Pierre Poilievre as not being qualified. Meanwhile, the first thing they would do is try to tell you their years of experience in whatever field they're trying to convince you they're the expert of. So again, if I could just get a little consistency, like I don't understand why the left thinks that you can say one thing and then for the exact same switch to another thing, back and forth, back and forth. Consistency is what solves the problems. Consistency is what people hang their hat on. Consistency is what we need to take away from these meetings of the minds, as to take a word from Mark Carney. Coming back to it, though, let's just look at the results of this fiasco for the Liberal Party. We can take away a couple of things. We can know for sure that the Liberal Party has no idea what to do, because all they did was yell and jeer and stomp their feet and draw attention to try anything to distract Pierre Poilievre from telling the truth. If they felt that they were able to overcome that in any other way, they would. But they all sat around clamping and clomping like a bunch of trained seals with the painted on smiles, acting like somehow they were getting one up on you. Canadians are going hungry. The whole country's falling to pieces. And you think that we can take the idea of private sector and do what with that exactly? How does that solve the problem? You offered us nothing except for the same slogans you've been saying. We're going to get the best deal. You ran on a platform that you were going to wrap Donald Trump around your little finger and make him your pet. Turns out that it's the other way around. There are countries out there who had no idea that Donald Trump was going to impose tariffs on them. He went ahead and did it like a month later. They have already negotiated the deal and are capitalizing on the trade and the investment. Meanwhile, our entire country falls to pieces because you think that it's okay for us to invest in the American infrastructure without ever investing in the Canadian infrastructure. You talk about how you're giving bailout money to many of these large corporations that are simply taking that bailout money, saying thank you very much, putting it in their bank account and moving into the United States of America. Oh, I have no doubt that they're figuring out a way to meet the market for the cars. But the Americans see our market as very small, and it is. Population-wise, there are more people that they can see trying to sell a car to in Central America than there are absolutely in North America, in Canada. You want to give bailouts to the steel industry. Why don't you find a product, a place for the steel to go? Say, I don't know, a pipeline, or I don't know, shipping. Why don't you build something inside of this country? But you can't do that because you're ideologically opposed to any progress. You don't mind making money off it in your private life, but when Canadians say we want something better from you, you pull out the drum, you start talking a whole bunch of rhetoric, and because the Canadian voter just wants to vote against Donald Trump, they go ahead and throw our country down the drain in an effort to harm Donald Trump's feelings. That's what it seems like from where I'm sitting. You can let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm going to wrap here. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.